Hello out there. Hello, everybody. And thank you for taking your time out of your night or whatever to listen to After Hours. And just come on in and let's just get started on this. I just came across this article just now, and it just still continues. 8 correction officers of color were reassigned from guarding Derek Chauvin. We're going to listen to this news report out of Minneapolis about this. Take a listen.
Correctional officers of color are suing Ramsey County for discrimination. An attorney representing the officers says they were prohibited from entering or working on the floor where former MPD officer Derek Chauvin was being held. The attorney spoke about the lawsuit against the county this morning.
Right now, our community, our state, and our country are grieving the senseless death of George Floyd and far too many other people of color. Many of us are using this moment to examine and take a closer look at racism and the small and large systemic injustices facing our neighbors of color. Unfortunately, we're here today to bring light to another example of prejudice and discrimination, this time in the workplace. On Friday, May 29th, 8 correctional officers of color went to work at Ramsey County Jail, which is right here behind me, expecting to do their jobs. However, they were prevented from doing so when former police officer Derek Chauvin arrived at the jail that afternoon. Upon his arrival, Superintendent Leiden ordered that all the correctional officers of color were to be prohibited from guarding Chauvin or going anywhere on the 5th floor where he was to be held. This decision was made solely because of the color of the officer's skin. We're here today because 8 individuals who were impacted by this decision were brave enough to come forward. It was not easy, and it still isn't easy. Out of fear of retaliation, they've made the difficult decision to remain anonymous today. They're fearful of losing their jobs and livelihood and putting their families at risk. My clients are kind, fiercely loyal, passionate people who care deeply about each other and about their job. And the deliberate discriminatory treatment they received from Ramsey County on May 29th has left them feeling broken. This morning, I'll share a brief overview of the events at Ramsey County Jail, and then I'll take questions from reporters. On May 29th, officers of color were busily preparing the jail for Chauvin's arrival when they were informed in various ways that they would be reassigned away from any task requiring them to be on the 5th floor of the jail where Chauvin was to be held. For example, 2 of the officers of color were tasked with cleaning the 5th floor to prepare for Chauvin's arrival, which involved removing urine and other unsanitary waste. When the cleaning was done, they were hastily reassigned away from the 5th floor once Chauvin arrived. One acting sergeant was stopped in the middle of booking Chauvin by the superintendent himself, who told the sergeant he did not want the sergeant transporting Chauvin to his unit. One acting sergeant was stopped, several correctional officers of color were interrupted in the middle of responding to an emergency call and informed that they would not be permitted to complete the emergency procedure because it involved taking the inmate to the 5th floor. Another officer realized something was wrong because he was in the control room and noticed on the jail's cameras that all of the correctional officers of color were on the 3rd floor. These officers initially thought the interruption to their schedules was odd, but later learned it was no coincidence. Superintendent Leiden had issued an order prohibiting all employees of color from working on the 5th floor. At least one officer of color was also reassigned away from the 5th floor for her weekend shift on May 31st. I want to note that this was not a split-second decision, as the sheriff's office seems to be saying at this point. Superintendent Leiden shared his idea of segregating officers with one of his sergeants prior to issuing it. The sergeant, a person of color herself, informed Leiden that his plan was offensive, but Leiden marched on and issued it anyway. And that lieutenant was not alone in objecting to the superintendent's order. The superintendent implemented his order and stuck by it despite receiving urgent complaints from several other employees, including many of my clients. In the face of these complaints, Leiden initially defended his decision, claimed it was backed by Sheriff Fletcher and other leadership, and justified it by saying that the officers of color were a liability around Chauvin. After some time, Superintendent Leiden finally backed down and claimed he had decided to change the order, but at that point the damage had been done. Shifts had already been reassigned, and the blatant discrimination had broken the trust and the bonds between the jail staff and the supervisors. Some officers of color were so upset they went home, concerned emotions.
All right, that's enough. You see that? Did you hear what was going on in that prison? I mean, I just don't understand it. We're protecting a criminal. Not only that, you're being prejudiced. Allegedly, it is being reported that you are prejudiced in your job assignments. This is systematic racism still, and we still haven't learned nothing from the protests that took place over the past few weeks. This is insane. Those correction officers are highly trained individuals. They are to keep the jail safe at all times, keep the people who committed the crimes safe at all times. So, the superintendent, shame on that superintendent for allegedly prohibiting the officers of color from their assignments and rearranging the assignments to actively, allegedly protect this ex-police officer that committed a murder on camera. I don't understand. We just don't learn. And I am appalled that this news report has came out, and we had just went through a whole bunch of rioting and protests, and we just can't catch a break, can we? We just can't get our head above water at all. And I feel bad for it's just pour water on an electrical fire. It's like we just lit up a car. We just blew up a car. You know, we just put a cigarette in the gasoline tank and it's exploded. Yeah, it's just unbelievable on how we just continue on to make the same mistakes over and over and over again, allegedly over and over again. You know, I sure hope justice is served, you know, for once and for all. I really do. I really do, because this right here can't go on. It can't go on forever. It cannot go on forever. We just cannot continue to make the same mistakes willingly and allegedly now. Allegedly, because we don't know if this was true or not, but we're just going by reports. Allegedly, you know, this is associated with what had happened back in Minneapolis a few weeks ago. You know, it's just a shame. There's no words for what is being, these allegations, you know, that's coming about all of a sudden, you know. Unbelievable. And I think America is just cursed, to be honest with you. I think America is really cursed about what has happened, what is going on. You know, what we're trying to fix, we can't fix because it's embedded. It's embedded in the culture of America. These behaviors, these decisions, allegedly, you know, everything that has happened is because of a culture that's been set in stone in America for years, decades, centuries. You know, over time. And I don't think we will ever see the light. I don't think we'll ever see the light. To be honest with you, I really think things will not change. I think things are just making a stink. It's making a stink real bad, and then after that, it's going to calm down drastically. Everybody's going to forget about it. We're going to move on with our lives and everything. And this is just horrible on what is going on. It's just like one thing. What else is next? What else is next? And then earlier today, it was a video out. One of the ex-officers that was an accomplice, when that murder was committed on camera. He was in a grocery store, Cub Foods, I think it was, on camera. This was reported by TMZ, that he had no remorse for what he done. He had no remorse for what he done. He told the lady that he is sorry that she felt the way that she felt, and she harassed him around with the camera. Allegedly. That's what they said. But she said she stated her feelings as she should. I personally wouldn't confront nobody, if they are out in the public, they out on bail and stuff and everything. It's upsetting, but I wouldn't personally do it. This is what happens. People get out on bail. They allegedly committed a crime, and they out on bail and stuff, and you have knowledge of it. You kind of get into your feelings a little bit. I just feel bad for everybody who's involved. It's just not gonna. It's just like something. It's like a problem that never can solve itself, and this is one of them. Racism in America will never be able to solve itself. That's just it. That's my 2 cents on that. So, alright. And until next time, you will hear me in the next recording. Take care and be wild.